Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Dr. Sharma here. It's been a while and I've done a little bit of a rebranding of the channel to more align it with the name of my practice. I'm also going to be uploading videos just like this. It's more conversational, looking at individual topics and breaking them down. You guys know that I've tried short form content with B-roll, all types of things, and I just couldn't get into it, so this is a different type of video. It's more my vibe and hopefully yours as well. You may or may not know I work with a lot of veterans and I'm a veteran myself, and this video is about mental health stigma in the military and in veterans. And this word stigma, it gets thrown around a lot, and I think we need to take a closer look at it. And the statistics are pretty strong, right? In the military, it's about 60 to 70% of folks with some type of mental illness who never end up seeking treatment while they're in. And in these studies, there are some common sayings from folks. They're worried about what their leadership will say if they find out they're going to mental health, how their peers will react, if they will be viewed as weak, or they might feel like they are going to get discharged from the military because of their mental illness. But I want to go deeper than that. I want to go deeper than the study and ask why. What is the underlying atmosphere that allows these beliefs to grow? And what I think is that the military conditions us to think in a certain way. We are conditioned to feel like seeking care for mental illnesses or physical illnesses is weakness. And this is drilled into us from the beginning during training. God forbid you got to go to sick call for any issue, right? I even remember when I was in training, I had an upper respiratory infection. I held out for days because I didn't want to go to sick call. Ended up with a fever and some pretty gnarly symptoms. And so I went to sick call, and there was a provider there. And, they were automatically giving me an attitude, saying, well, I don't know if you know this, but there's no cure for the common cold, And that's when I told him, listen, sir, I was just wondering if you could give me some Sudafed or a decongestant, and I'll be on my way. I don't need any quarters or time off, So he took me back, looked in my ears, and his approach softened, and he told me I had a lot of congestion and gave me medication. But the point of that, explaining that interaction, is that his immediate instinct was, this guy is trying to get out of training, right? And that's a provider, right? That's someone who's supposed to be looking out for us. So very small interaction, and honestly, it's something I had forgotten about until I was looking up information for this video. But it says a lot about the overall atmosphere and what's drilled into us, all of us, in the service. Now, when I think back to my time as a flight surgeon in the Air Force, I realized that there was an expectation that was drilled into us from the beginning as flight docs. We were told to think of ourselves as quote-unquote force multipliers, right? And that means our job was to return sick people back to duty as quickly as possible to return to the fight. And we were expected to help people heal, obviously, but force multiplying was our main objective. And I realized that, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Obviously, that is the nature of having a military fighting force. But that does change the way we look at things, right? Keep in mind, this was way before I became a psychiatrist, so I didn't see these psychological factors and underlying elements in training and what it meant. Yet another example, as a flight doc, one of my jobs was doing separation physicals. And I recall that as I was doing these, I started referring people out to places like mental health. I ordered sleep studies, x-rays, routine things that we usually do. And that was all based on what people were telling me as they were going out the door, right, as they were leaving the military. So if someone told me that they had severe fatigue and their spouse was complaining about their snoring, and maybe they're having some episodes of gasping overnight, then I'd order a sleep study, right? It's very, very, very straightforward, very common sense. And if someone told me they had some type of anxiety or depression symptoms, I'd send them to mental health, right? Things like that, pretty routine, or so I thought. Well, this ended up going into some metrics somewhere, a metric sheet, and an individual in leadership came to talk to me about it, and he essentially told me that these were things that people could do in the VA system after they left the military. Now, keep in mind, I knew nothing about the VA disability process at that time. Benefits, claims. I didn't even know that people could claim benefits after leaving the military, right? So, and nobody tells you that, right, as you guys know. And I don't know if what this person in leadership was telling me was intentional. I'm not saying that it was. I'm not saying there was an effort to decrease benefits to veterans in that way. I have no proof of that. But I'm trying to get to the underlying reasons behind the overall atmosphere in the military. Where does all this hesitation come from when it comes to seeking care in the clinic? And I really believe it's this overall atmosphere that starts during initial training in boot camp, continues during your duties, extends to deployments, and even in the separation process. So it's persistent, right? And the separation physical is kind of like our last chance to say anything before we leave. And admittedly, a lot of people don't say anything even on those separation physicals because there's so much to do during out processing. You just want to get out of there, right? I remember scrambling to get my mop gear to logistics and signing out of places I've never even been to on base, right? Because you needed to make sure you needed to sign out of every single location. So it's understandable that we might skip some of this stuff while we're sitting in the clinic, especially if we don't know anything about the VA and benefits and things like that. It's even worse if the provider is trying to rush you through the process, right, and get through the separation physical quickly, and that can happen as well. Now, going back to my time as a flight doc, I remember that I had to go and give briefings in the squadrons, and it was specifically to let people know that they can come to the clinic for different issues. So, and this had to do with a lot of different medical problems, but one of them was gastric reflux, right? Like GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. And I was telling the pilots, the navigators, the boom operators, I was in a KC-135 unit, and I was telling them they can come to the clinic for GERD symptoms and other medical conditions, and don't worry, you won't be disqualified, you'll remain on flying status, things like that. And it was to make people more comfortable, right? And to let them know that they can come to the clinic and talk about these things. They're not going to get disqualified. They can remain on flying status. They can keep doing their duties. But it's also understandable that people don't want to come to the clinic, right? None of us want to jeopardize our careers. And this is another reason for not admitting to mental health issues. If you noticed, when I was talking about this briefing, I didn't mention anything about mental health because that wasn't part of it. I couldn't tell them that you can come to the clinic and talk about mental health issues and you're not going to be disqualified because that's not the reality, right, of the situation. So, and this reason for not admitting to mental health issues because it might jeopardize your career, it happens at the conscious and subconscious levels. So we instinctively want to hide from symptoms or conditions that might jeopardize our careers. And this comes from survival, right? Our amygdala, the fight or flight center in our brain, it wants us to survive, and our careers are our livelihoods. And this can be in any job in the military, not only flying positions, nuclear positions, presidential support, really anything. Because we all know that mental health diagnoses can impact our deployability, sometimes our individual positions, the skills we have, ability to carry firearms, a lot of these things, right? And so this is another source of discouragement, and it contributes to this overall atmosphere in the military. And I want to end this video here. I hope this relatively short video was helpful in terms of taking a deeper look at the stigma within the military about mental illness. And I really just wanted to hit that atmosphere component and go deeper than just those, overlying reasons. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you're comfortable saying if you agree with this or not, or maybe some experiences of your own. Also, let me know if you like these more informal and conversational videos. It's something that I'm trying out. And if there are other topics you want me to cover within mental health, or maybe having to do with mental health, let me know in the comments as well. As always, thanks for watching. Dr. Sharma signing off. See you next time.